And we are live. We are live. We are live. So, welcome in. We have to give everybody a moment because it takes a moment. Yeah. See, I don't even have, I always turn on my notification. I don't have a notification yet that we are, there we go. So, it's just now coming on. Welcome in, guys. We didn't want to wait until next week to bring our Trump 2025 shows. Tonight, Jerry is not going to be in the chat. So I have a special co host. Some of you might be able to figure it out, but this is none other than one of my brothers, my favorite brother. So thank you, Cups, so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Good to be here.
And the Dow has dropped over 2,200 points yesterday, and it's a serious situation for the country. So, Cups, you were just telling me what it was the day before.
The day before it dropped about 1,600. So,
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to pay attention to these numbers because it's all part of our global. It's all part of our global money system.
So, and for most people, it's like our parents and grandparents, they had pensions. They had pensions, and not as many people have pensions anymore. More people rely on a 401k, and it's probably people that are in retirement or close to retirement. These seeing such big drops is really concerning, because this is when you want everything that you've saved up for to actually, matter and be as big as possible near the end, when you're going to start, withdrawing or taking from, and to have that just suddenly shrink, by so much, 10% and in a couple days is, it's devastating. And when it comes to the stock market, the stock market,
are you talking about the S&P 500?
No, I'm talking about those two, but I'm talking like the specifically about what the Dow, how
the Dow
that
Jones.
dropped. And I think it has the uncertainty of what's going on right now with the tariffs is something the stock market and financial markets in general do not like uncertainty, and they want to be able to basically predict what's going to be happening in the near future, and it's an indicator of what they don't know. So if they don't know what's going to happen, the easiest way to handle it is to sell it off. And that's what's happened right now, is because they cannot, and there's a lot of
and when you're selling people off, though, you're at a reduced price. You're not.
You drive because you need other people to buy. If you're selling, you need other people to buy. And generally, when a lot of people are selling, the people that are buying are not necessarily going to say, oh yeah, I'll pay up for that. So when that's, a buyer's market, and right now it's, we'll see Monday what happens as far as, if there's a little bit of a rebound, or, if maybe something happens tomorrow that will give a little more certainty.
Well, now I watched during the night. I watched Schumer and a few other people talking that we're going to be working into the wee hours to try and fix things for Monday morning. So they expected to be working till at least 3 a.m.
I think there's only so much that they can actually do, because, when it comes to tariffs, technically it's Congress that has the constitutional responsibility for tariffs.
Okay. In other words, hold on 1 second there, Cups. In other words, what the president has done with all of these tariffs is technically illegal, correct?
Well, not technically, because Congress has not challenged it. So what he's done is basically, um, Congress has acquiesced and given, basically just allowed him to do so. And I think that if there was more of a rationale behind it all, it would make more sense. If we're going to take and try to everybody's for bringing, manufacturing jobs and things like that back to the U.S. And so many jobs have gone away. Many of them lower paying jobs, um, that have gone away, and to bring them back, that would be wonderful. But um, I don't know if it's like trying to find, you know, getting coal mining jobs back. That's, how many people want to really be a coal miner anymore?
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and I just want to say for people that are just coming in, welcome in. Jerry Ann is not with me tonight. My co host tonight is one of my brothers. His name is Cups. So he's highly intelligent. Him and I are always discussing politics and going back and forth on different issues. Now, even though investors are very leery on investing because of the drop yesterday and the day before, um, our president, current president, President Trump, happened to be here in Florida on the golf course today. So where he has spent cups, is it 25% or 40% of his current time in office of working days that he has spent on the golf course?
well, the actual hours, I don't know, but the days, it's, in the time that he's been on in office this second term, uh, 25% has been, um, he's, a quarter of the days that he's been in office in the second term, he's gone to the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Which also cost, if I am correct on this, for him the travel for um, security teams, all of that. It is seven figures, is what I read. Literally over $2 million for a golf outing for President Trump to take.
it's a lot of money. Well, when you consider just for a president to travel, what the um, logistics are, uh, you know, it's Air Force One and the security and the teams that, um, scout teams that are, going ahead and making sure that everything is safe,
Mm-hmm.
and all, it adds up to a lot. So anytime that they leave the confines of, Washington D.C. and the White House, it gets expensive. So
Well,
each time that they leave, go out of town, it's expensive.
you were actually here not that long ago, down literally right by Mar-a-Lago. You sent me pictures, the
Oh yeah,
security team outside of there and stuff. And then
yeah.
when you got to the airport, your flight was delayed because the president had flown in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dude,
Do you
and that's
remember that?
part of security.
Mm-hmm.
Security is, which we would expect it to be tight, because, um, that anybody in that position, no matter what party, is a target for, some bad actors to try to make some sort of a statement for whatever their cause may be.
Exactly. Cups, if you can turn your volume up just a little, that would be great. And I'm going to read the chat here right now. Hi, Monique. Welcome in, honey. Tonight, we're going to be talking about tariffs and different things that have been going on the past few days and what we can expect. And Angry Otter says what he's done is he's taken us back to a U.S. model of the 19th century, abandoning centuries of globalization and American economic dominance in the world. It's a return to isolationism. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think one thing that makes the U.S. economy as strong as it is that we are basically open to so many different, we buy from so many different places because we are, you know, one of the largest, if not the largest consumer of products in the world.
We
And
are actually, from what I read, we are actually the largest consumer of products in the world.
yes,
So,
and and in turn, it's, you don't necessarily have in other countries the same sort of receptiveness um, as far as, openness to buy from all over the place. But that's also what it has made us as strong as we are, is that we do uh, have such a reach, and the our
mhm.
country, has just, we live in a society of we want it now, and that, you know got to have it now. Sometimes we buy stuff that, we may have to charge it or whatever we have to do, but
Yeah,
we will have it now. And it's, we are from a weekly work schedule. We are have of all the countries in the world, we're up in the top 10 for the length of our work weeks. So everybody works hard in the US, and the expectation is to, you know, for what time we have the free time, we have less free time than a lot of other, nations. And I think we at least want to be able to enjoy the time, and
exactly. Let me read Mike here in the chat. Anna, only in my dreams. Hi, Anna. Anna says getting America back on track as a producing country instead of a consuming country is great, but the tariffs are going to create more damage to Americans. And then Angry Otta says it is American manufacturing that needs to be revitalized, but we also don't need to decimate our closest allies, which is very true. Now,
all true.
just the lowest um, tariffs have gone into effect. The higher ones are coming.
Well, it's when you look at the impact, and we haven't even really felt the impact yet. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It
Hi,
is
little Debbie. I'm
it
sorry, Mike.
is it is going to be um, truly devastating to everyone. I mean, there's all sorts of estimates right now. I saw one that was it's going to cost a family of four um, $8,000 a year additional.
Which is an estimate.
It's an estimate, and
Mm-hmm. An estimate.
right, and we don't necessarily know what it is that is going to allow us to turn the corner and be able to, you know, start, pulling back on these tariffs, because, there's it's been a little vague as to what it's going to take to make that happen. And, you know, if anything, which is what we're engaging in right now, especially with China, the it's going to be tit for tat. They're
Oh,
just going to
yeah, they've
take.
already said that. Exactly, retaliatory. Hi, little
eh,
Debbie. Welcome in. Cripple Creek, welcome in. You ladies probably do not know this gentleman on the screen, but this is my brother, Cups. So please welcome him in. He's highly intelligent. He has a master's degree, and him and I are swapping stuff like almost daily. So
and I can guess just like anybody else right now when it comes to this, because it's all we can do is guess. It's unfortunate. It's just that our world is this is what I call an unforced error.
Okay, but Mike, look at Mike or Cups, whichever one you want to call me. I prefer to call you Cups, but look at the uh, all of the protests. Every single state across the country had those today.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people out in the streets.
Yep.
Jeep has paused on manufacturing. They've lost just an unbelievable amount of money. They've already laid off people, 900 people in Indiana immediately. And that 900 people is not just 900 people, that is that employee plus their spouse plus their children. So it equals several thousand.
Well, it's not just that. It's there's when it comes to the automotive industry and the associated pieces to it, and associated pieces may be, suppliers, and then dealers, and then the employees of dealers, and then the people that supply the dealerships, and people at the banks that provide loans and things like that for people buying automobiles, and
Well,
things.
it
It
literally adds. So when you're buying a new car, pretty much of any kind, it's going to add several thousand to that price tag. So if your household is already increased because of the tariffs, who's going to
well,
have that money to go and throw away extra thousands
well,
on a brand
that's
new
the
car
people that
because of a
decide to
tariff?
actually go ahead and buy a car during this time. I think a lot of people are not going to buy during this
Exactly.
time. I think, just like with the stock market, that where you know all the big traders and everything else, they want to just they they want certainty, and if there's not certainty, they would rather just sell off positions and see what happens. And I think this is what, unless your car is you know can't be fixed, can't be repaired, and you absolutely have to have a new car. I think it's going to be out of necessity uh, alone. That's going to where a lot of these, uh, when the tariffs really kick in, because
Okay.
there's some cars that may already be on like dealer lots and everything else that are pre-tariff cars.
Okay, but you know what? Like I have talked to you about, with me getting estimates and stuff for my home
Yeah.
already, like for things that steel are needed for, I was kind of, I guess I want to call it blackmailed for lack of a better word. But
Hmm.
one of the people I was considering hiring, my number one pick for my house, gave me until March 8th and said if I didn't sign with him by March 8th, that he was giving me the 15% steel tariff. I said, why? Your warehouse is full. He goes, well, but it's coming down, this and that and stuff. And so I said, I'm sorry, you are my top choice, but just for the fact you're wanting to do that, I'm not hiring you. Now, let me read you this in the chat real quick if I can. Little Debbie says she's afraid of people who lost their fortune from the market will consider harming themselves. Well, uh, most people didn't lose their fortune, but they lost money. And Mr. Picky says, can you see the chat, Mike? Mr. Picky says, Jeep Dodge has been, and hi, Mr. Picky, Chrysler Jeep Dodge has been in trouble for many years. I can't concede that this is due to tariffs.
Yeah, no, it's Stellantis, which now owns Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Alpha. Um, they they have been kind of working through things, and they've had some issues, and probably amongst the major car manufacturers, they probably uh, have had more issues that they've been contending with. So it's not a tariff alone that's creating issues for them, but um, when you consider, as a company tries to work through um, problems that they have, it doesn't help when you have something like this now, especially when you're dealing with companies that, in order to make themselves more, um, I guess, economies of scales, to um, because everybody, even though we say, hey, Ford and GM, they don't sell in Europe, they actually do. They sell all across the globe. Volkswagen, GM, Ford, they are in South America. They're all over the place, Asia. And their presence in all those different places allows them to different platforms, different chassis that they use for cars. They can use one in the US that they may have been using in Europe because it has worked well for them. It's generally in Europe, you're going to get the smaller cars and things. And then some of the smaller cars that we may have here, they use some shared platforms and everything else. And that helps them to reduce the cost of a vehicle and can affect the selling price of the vehicle as well. Now,
Well,
however,
now
since we're so
hold on one
global,
second.
yeah,
Hold on 1 second, Cups, because I just want you to get this. And
yeah,
just so that you guys in the chat know, Cups knows the car industry very, very well. He's been in it for decades. He knows it well. Carol Seeley says it has to get worse before it gets better. Trump said that 48 hours after election, too many countries had charged us tariffs for years. I have no problem with the USA charging them. Retail will use any excuse to raise prices and gain profits. Well, Carol, he also said that he was going to change prices the first day he was in office. Did he not?
that
Did
he
he not?
well he was going to be able to. I mean, the biggest thing that consumers want to see is that things are more affordable,
Hmm.
and this he's fighting for like a long-term thing that even in the best assessment will never happen during his presidency. So there's a lot of sacrifice and suffering that will take place, and you're not going to suddenly correct uh, you know countries that have been protectionist, and you know and these are a lot of smaller economies that, with the exception of Germany, some of the European countries try to, they're nationalistic, and they may not have all of the services and everything else that we have, but they try to hang on to um, some of what they have, and they come up with their tariffs, and that, I think, has also hindered them from becoming an even bigger economy, is because they're short-sighted, and then now we're kind of falling into that as well. I think if you're targeted, that there is a time and a place for tariffs. I think you just have to be more surgical about it. You can't just take and you know like people
Give
are saying,
blanket tariffs to
take a
everybody.
chainsaw to it.
Hmm.
And that's the problem. If there's specific things that we see, like when they were, steel, Japan was dumping steel, and that's where, you know because the country of Japan was actually subsidizing their steel manufacturers so that they could actually go and sell steel cheaper than what, like the US and other countries would be able to make it for. And that's tough because, now it um that was something that was done, back in the 80s and 90s, and now here we are, um trying to get ourselves, you know sorted out. And this is such a broad um spectrum that we're looking at now, that it's like, where do you even begin?
Let me read you this. Mr. Pickey says his opinion is that President Trump has been in office all of 4 months. I'm a long game type person. I can't form an educated opinion based off only 4 months, mainly because I know uh, where the economy stood 5 years ago. Well, and actually, now from February to last month, um, unemployment has jumped already double digits.
Well,
So,
I mean, here, there is some truth in what he's saying, is that it's a short period of time. The only
mhm,
thing is that there's so much that's being done right
so
now
fast.
Yeah. That when you do everything and there's not, if you don't share the vision, what is it exactly that we're trying to do? Like initially, the tariffs, they started off as being, it was to combat, um, fentanyl coming into the country, and we wanted, better controls on either uh, side of
Canada
our,
and Mexico.
yeah, our northern and southern borders, and and then we're expanding it out where we want countries to take and now it's about hey, how we're being treated or have been treated, and that's not stuff that can be changed overnight. And I would have rather have seen um, behind the scenes negotiations prior to coming out and publicly challenging all of these countries, because I mean, like all of these countries, they have citizens, and those citizens are nationalistic. And when you basically hit them with, these threats, and you know, they're going to be more resistant to say, okay, here we have to, acquiesce and give in, because this is a United States. And I
Hmm.
think that there's a lot of them that are more than willing to battle this out, and thinking that it's us, the US, that's going to be the ones that will give in sooner. And I mean, I have to say, a lot of us vote with our pocketbook or our wallets. And I think right now it's nobody wants to, this is money that we're going to be giving up, that it's not countries that pay these tariffs. It's the
It's the
consumers
people
that
of the
pay.
countries.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the consumers. So you could choose not to consume those products where the tariffs are going to be up. But there again, there's so many things that are part of it, that electronics and everything else that you're going to be affected by,
We're
and
not,
food and
mhm.
liquor and
Yeah, pretty much everything that we use and consume on a daily basis, clothing, the whole bit. Now,
yeah.
and Anna was saying that they're a small business owner, vehicle repair shop, and we're not looking forward to the higher prices for parts. Our customers are already feeling the pinch.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
here, that's, they're the ones that it's hard to justify to everybody that suddenly it's going to cost this much more. And now you're going to have workers on top of it that can't make, can't pay their bills now, because, their weekly and monthly costs will be going up. And now they have workers that are, helping them in their business, whether they be, technicians or, you know, uh, people that help on the front or the accounting side, whatever it may be. Um, those people may actually seek other employment if they can't make the money they need, with new costs being, new burdens for just, you know, surviving,
yeah,
and,
but
providing
with
for
there
their
being
families.
right, but unemployment will rise with tariffs. We know that. And
It
so,
Yeah, it would definitely get worse before it gets better.
hmm
And
so the choices of jobs. So for people that need higher paying jobs, that market's going to be a lot smaller. Agree or disagree?
well, it all depends on the job. Like when there's skilled labor, you can, like for instance, technicians. A technician, he may not want to leave a place like here at their auto repair shop. They may have, people that are very happy being there, but now with the cost of goods going up, just for them to provide for their families, now they have to consider, I really enjoy working here, but if I'm unable to uh, you know afford to live, um, then I have to do something else. Now, what
Right.
else would that be? Or they have to, there has to be some sort of an offset there. And it just creates, it's a ripple effect, and it's huge. And imagine how those dominoes falls. Now, not just the price of those parts that they're worried about, the increase in the cost of parts to repair a vehicle. Now the increase in the labor to repair those vehicles.
Hmm.
And how do you justify that? And how much, is there a threshold now where people say, this is just a little too much for me right now. I can't get the vehicle repaired. I'll have to, I'll just have to hold off on that. Whereas before they might have said, okay, I can work that out in the budget, because now those people that are paying for the repairs, they're up against it too, because now they're paying more. And this is all of this stuff is just, you know, hasn't even fully hit us yet. So
Right.
imagine when we start feeling the full effects of it.
Right. Well, now, Angry, I'm going to read you a couple comments here, okay,
Sure.
Cups? Angry Otter says less than 1% of fentanyl comes across from Canada, which, yeah, we know that, Otter.
Yep.
I mean, you can't even buy a gun in Canada. It was American guns killing Canadians, and you have a freeze on buying guns there. And then Cripple Creek says salt pills are $18 and up. IV packs or drinks running around $50 on American salt. Salt, people, salt. Like regular salt. And then Anna says they should make the IRS obsolete. Americans will need every penny. And Limber, hi Limber. And Limber says comments on Trump's claim that big business is coming back. He cites the 5 U.S. Ford plants that have been in the works for years as evidence. Here we
Yeah.
go on
Well,
that one.
there's it is like all of the talk about bringing so many manufacturing jobs back. It's so tough, especially now with robotics and a lot of, just as technology has improved, it in and of itself has eliminated a number of jobs, especially manufacturing jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
you look at the assembly of a car now. How many of the robots are assembling, major components and doing welds and things like that on cars that, we had, hundreds of people in an
Right,
assembly
but
line.
I don't think so, Cups. That's one thing that's going to be on the top of the list is car manufacturing, especially with a tariff on top of it, the cost of building the manufacturing plants and the length of time. Look at how, do you remember when the shortage was here for the chips on the cars? And there were
Totally.
brand new car dealerships that had no cars. Do you remember that a few years
Totally.
back?
Totally.
Right.
Yep.
So, to build that chip plant, I believe that I read that they said, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to be building that chip plant in the United States." But isn't it 7 years to build it?
Well, it's already in process. There's two plants that they're actually building, and then um, I forget the name. They're out of Taiwan. They've committed to building here in the U.S. too, and they're the ones, the Taiwan chip maker is the one that where most chips right now are being supplied. So I think it's, as far as like those jobs, a lot of our stuff has gone to service industry, uh, and I'm not talking about just servicing things, but also, it's like it's higher paying jobs. So we've moved ourselves from being, you know, just manufacturing, which was everything, turn of the century, and then now it's there's so much, from the financial services industries to, you know, technology, IT, all that
Mm-hmm.
we have here in our country now, that things that we didn't have before. We
Well,
didn't really talk much about it in the 70s.
now Limber says my understanding is that most of these Ford plants are replacing obsolete, worn out plants.
Yes, they do. And each time they make a plant, they're more efficient than the other plants, and they have more robots in them than.
Right, meaning you need less people.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's a catch 22, and you look at things that we love, that to be able to manufacture things, but in the course of manufacturing some of the things, it's the jobs are less and less. It's
Mhm.
it's a shrinking. It doesn't take as you know many people to make the things that we made in the past.
Do you think right now, though, Cups, that we are kind of scattered all over the place, especially the past few weeks? We went from the problem with Ukraine and Russia, uh, back and forth with tariffs. Whenever President Scheinbaum from Mexico would not back down to President Trump, then instead of the tariffs for Mexico going in place, then he stretched it out because she would not back down. Then we've gone from that to things like this Laura Loomer going to the Oval Office, a four-star general being fired, people from the security cabinet of the president being fired. Do you think we kind of need to like land on one thing at a time and focus, or
I I
just
I think, like anything, um, like they've talked about presidents in the past, like, hey, they're the great communicators, and I think right now, that President Trump needs to really over communicate so that everybody knows this is what we're looking to do, um, and spell it out and say this is how we will know that we've succeeded. And you know I'm I what where he loses me when he talks about tariffs, when he says that no, people don't pay tariffs. He goes, it's the country. Like, if he puts a tariff on China for goods that are being uh, imported to the U.S., um, that China is paying it. Well, actually, it's the company that's paying to have the product produced in China is actually the one paying it, because they're the ones getting it shipped here. And in turn, whether there's a wholesaler or distributor or whoever else, that tariff cost is being passed on to them as well. And then they, in turn, whether it's the end retailer, the tariff cost is being passed to them. And then that
and where,
retailer
where
will,
where does that money land though? Right in the government
the U.S. government,
pocket. Mm-hmm.
that's why
The,
it's looked
the
at
U.S.
as a,
government.
a tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, in all respects, it is a huge tax, against U.S. Citizens right now, because
Right.
it's it's not a business that's going to, unless the business is, you know, buying something that's, that they're consuming themselves. But if it's something for a product that they're bringing in, they're paying for, that is, everything's being passed on to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Everything,
Yep.
and here's the part of it too, is this is where, when we had chip shortages and the COVID shortages and things, people, um, companies couldn't get the amount of goods that they wanted, or products that they wanted. They just couldn't make them
Okay.
fast enough, or make enough of them. And
But
now
what
it's going
what
to be the
happened with
reverse.
cups? What happened with that though? When there was the shortage, let's use the
Prices,
car
yeah,
industry for
prices went up.
example,
Prices
because
went up
I was out looking for a car
totally, and prices go
and
up.
that's right, the prices go up. So say if we have tariffs with all these other countries and then they don't ship to us, we don't get merchandise, food shortages in the stores and everything.
Well,
This
here,
estimate that everybody's giving, that estimate can double or triple or four times that as to what we're going to pay.
so and this is just a guess on my part, but I see it, instead of it being a shortage per se of the product, now the company that is having it made will request less of it. So now what's being brought in, because just like we said about the stock market, they want certainty. So if a company is concerned that, hey, I can only get them to swallow so much, as far as the price, there's, like we used to always say, like a price of like booze and cigarettes, there's a lot of price elasticity. So you could keep increasing the price and the smokers are still going to want to smoke, and the
The
drinkers will
drinkers
want
are
to
still going to.
have
Mm-hmm.
drink. But when it comes to some other products, people can say, you know what, mm, I don't I don't think so. I'm going to hold on. I'm not going to buy some of the electronics. I'm not going to, you know, and they, so now that the person that is bringing those things in will now order less of them. And it's not even so much that some of these products are things that it wouldn't even be cost effective here to make it in the US, because a lot of those jobs, just from a labor standpoint and everything else, it's, you know, it's cheaper elsewhere, not just China, but, all throughout
Mm-hmm.
Asia, India, other
Well, now,
countries, South
uh,
America.
uh, Angry Otter says again, it's a return to the boss tweed of the era of the robber barons. We've all seen this before in the 1880s. So,
Yeah, well, here it's like Henry Ford used to do, as far as choice of color of a car, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. There was no uh
mm,
choices were not there for you. But unfortunately, we're in a different world where, um you know we can, like in our economy, we can do without. We like having stuff, but we can do without. Some people may find it hard. I mean, here, think about how many streaming services there are out there. You know, you have all these, and most people signed up for, two, three, four of these different streaming services. And I bet you there's still plenty of nights they can't find anything to watch with all
yes,
those
but then
streaming
they always
services.
tease you with like one good movie or one good to try and get you to sign up. I still haven't fallen for that. I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah,
not
well,
doing it.
believe me, there's plenty that have, and their prices keep
Mm-hmm.
going up. Now, what do you think
Mm-hmm.
is going to happen with this? That they're going to say their costs as far as production on films and getting films and everything else have gone up too. So that's going to be another thing that they're going to. That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing that the is just going to hit us, and they will dictate, because everything, McDonald's, when the Big Mac value meal, not that I eat at McDonald's a lot, but when the value meal for the Big Mac went up, um, increased by 70%. When you look at the cost of inflation and everything else, even their labor costs going up, there's no way in the world you could justify a 70% increase in it.
I don't know how even today, like a family could take two or three kids and buy all from a number on the menu.
Yeah. Well, no,
Mm-mm.
here, you think about it. That's, remember going out to Ponderosa,
Oh yeah,
what that
we used to go
was,
to Ponderosa as a kid.
your,
Don't know if
your,
any of you
your,
guys did that, but
your,
yeah.
your $3 meal that included salad bar, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yep.
um, but,
Don't give our ages away, please.
but here, when
Okay.
you think about, how, how much it cost, whereas that back then you could go out a couple nights a week, not even think twice about it. Now it's kind of like, you know make more stuff at home, maybe get some frozen meals to, you know
Go eat at
take,
Costco
eat a or Sam's
or
Club, wherever.
Sam's. That's
Yeah.
right.
um
But
but
it's going to be interesting though, seriously, to see Costco just raise their membership. They say it's first time in 7 years, but it'll be interesting to see what happens to their menu. And I know so many people that say to me, I don't know anything about our government and I don't care. Well, fine, let it smack you upside the head. But
No,
we all need to care.
you truly want to know as much as you possibly can. And
Exactly.
and I look at it like it is, when we have to think of it this way, like I don't think anybody intentionally wants to do our country harm.
That's right.
That's American citizens I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it doesn't mean that everything that they do is right as well and in the best interest, because there are things where we have to question everything we do. Like if we're looking at a household budget and we're just trying to afford things on a daily basis, we have to say, do I absolutely need this? And when it comes to our government working and functioning, hey, do I absolutely need this? And to hear, did I really look into this? And when I hear they have a budget, they brag about this budget, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always such a big thing when the government comes up with their annual budget. And as massive as it is, you'd think that they would be as dialed in as possible understanding it. And
What? Yeah, but you know what, Cups? Like for me, uh, even if things are going to cost a little bit more as we go along,
yeah.
I'm going to be selective and I'm going to support as many small businesses as I can.
Oh,
Be-
totally. Totally.
And
Because this is where some of the big companies are going to try to take advantage of us as consumers. And
mm-hmm.
because just like McDonald's with what they did on the Big Mac meal, and not to bash McDonald's because other ones did it too, but
Yeah, they followed.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows McDonald's. Um,
Exactly.
and that is just an example, and it hurt them too. It hurt McDonald's
Mm-hmm.
by doing that, and it's that greed. And it's you know if we want to see something happen with our country, it's not just looking at other countries, but also let's look at our country. Let's look at the companies. Let's look at the pharmaceutical companies that are charging outrageous amounts for drugs that our government is paying for research and development for some of them.
For
And
them.
then
Yeah.
in turn, the citizens of Canada and the citizens of Mexico can get it so much cheaper than what we can. And here we're fronting it. And then who are the ones that have to pay the most? It's the home country citizens of of many of these pharmaceutical companies. That's something we have to look at it. And it's if we want to be fair, let's look at our healthcare cost, the pharmaceutical cost, cost of an education. Look at, I don't know that the education has gotten any better, but it sure as hell's gotten more expensive.
More expensive.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's every year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, but you know what? In these times that we're going to face ahead, I really think that it will be a time for people to really learn to budget, to be selective on food, on clothing, shop your own closets if you can. Latin food is always your cheapest food to make at home. It goes a long way. I'm even going to start doing some videos. Spend a few bucks, buy this. This is what you can make. But we have to wake up to this. Share it with your family and friends. If they don't want to listen to you, well, then they're going to kind of be on their own. But yeah, we've got some hard days ahead, and maybe it will make us appreciate the lives that we had. But we can make it through these times. Those of us that are Christians, we know what the Bible predicts, and so, if we are diligent in our faith and continue to support our government, like I've said before on these shows, you guys, whether we like it or not, President Trump is our president. Whether you support him or if you don't, he's still our president. So, we need to at least try and give him a chance. I think these protests in the street, as long as they're peaceful, that they're fantastic because it gives him an overview of what people are concerned about. You
I,
know,
I, I'm all for uh, that. That is our
civil
right as
expression. is
right
what I
as
call it.
citizens to be able to, if you don't agree with somebody, you have every right in the world to go out there and protest. I think that um, our government leaders, this is all parties, need to look at it though, just on those costs. The tariffs are one thing. This has to be resolved, and I don't think here it's like I don't have to keep touching the hot stove to know it's hot, and I know having those tariffs out there are going to hurt people that can afford it least, and I know there's a better way, if negotiating, you know uh behind the scenes, not right out in the open, is not the way to
Exactly.
solve
The
this.
press picks up on so much stuff, and
You don't take leaders though, of other countries and challenge them and expect to get somewhere. I think it's a point where we have to take and do it behind the scenes. Okay,
Mhm.
we could have our bluster and everything else. Now let's work it out behind the scenes. And but for us, we need all of our elected leaders to do everything they can, not just with terrorists, but also these things that, healthcare costs, educational
peace,
costs.
peace, war.
Yeah, but I'm talking stuff that is gobbling up uh, our earnings more and more, taking a greater share every year. And you hear about, and it is no longer a case where how many people have pensions anymore. Like we talked about earlier in the conversation. So many
Hmm.
people now rely on their own savings or 401ks. And, we're more and more susceptible to changes in the stock market as opposed to the pension. The pension was it was an automatic guarantee that people had. They had that certainty,
Exactly. Well,
now
people actually took jobs because of a
of those
pension.
pensions. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
I want to read this, Cups. Oh, and Mr. Picky, you're welcome. That is truly how I feel. Angry Otter says, as someone who ran for U.S. Congress, I can tell you neither party cares about you. They care about keeping power and generating wealth. We're just pawns. I don't agree with that. I think we have plenty of people that work within our government system that they do truly care, that's why they're in politics.
I don't know.
So,
I'm a little jaded on that because I think sometimes they once somebody gets in office and stays in office for a while, I don't know if they have that same passion that got them to go and run for office in the first
right,
place.
but okay, but can you make that general statement though that they're all like that?
Well, I mean,
I don't believe that.
I don't know about all, but a bunch.
Wait,
What?
okay, I wanted to make sure you had sound.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I was just saying that maybe not all, like 100% of them, but I would say a
right,
good share of them. Sometimes they hear like the fire in the belly. It's like, do they still have that? Do they still have the passion? And let's say, hey, I just got 100 calls from my constituents, and they're complaining about this. That's all I do is complain. You know, I
right,
mean that's
right,
that's
right,
how I see it.
right.
And you
Okay,
know,
let me ask you this. Cory Booker the other night with the filibuster,
hmm
25 hours. Was that for free press or was that from the heart?
um, I would have to say that probably a little both. But I do respect the fact that the guy who did it previously was uh, Strom Thurmond, and Strom
Hmm.
Thurmond was he did it to uh, try to filibuster the civil rights amendment. So I think having somebody topping him, uh, and putting that as a distant memory is a good thing.
Hmm. You know what? And you guys, if this is terrible for me to say this, again, I want to be transparent and honest here. When Cory Booker did his 25 hours, I just kept thinking, like, did he take a potty break?
No.
I know, but it's like, but did he, like, somehow did they sneak it in there?
Well, they
I don't know how.
may have mopped up after he was done, but
Yeah, wow. I don't know how you could go that many hours.
well,
Uh,
you just got to lay off the water for a while.
no, that doesn't work for women, especially as we get older. You cannot drink in every 30 minutes you have to go. Deb Briggs says, and welcome in, Deb. She says that they lose their passion due to corruption. And Mary Ramirez, hi, Mary. Mary says she loves Cory Booker, and it was from his heart. And Mr. Piggy says, I still have yet to have a president come sit and have dinner at my house. You're kidding me. We had presidents at our house when we were kids, didn't we, Cups? No, I'm just kidding.
And I'm like, who's
uh,
that?
or pay a light bill, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to keep doing what I do to the best of my ability and going to treat people as I want to be treated. And his wife, Picky Nikki, says, amen, baby. Mary says, Cory Booker didn't do it didn't do it as a filibuster, though. Hmm.
I think that
All his
he didn't.
constituents are calling it a filibuster, Mary,
Well, I mean, technically, that's what it was.
because of the amount of time.
Yeah. Well, technically, because that's what allows you to do that. Uh, but
Exactly.
here, I would say though, I think it was whatever it was. I I think it's not like some that have gone up there in the past and they just start reading passages out of a book
Or
and things
singing
like,
songs, yeah.
yeah, just to kill the time. And I think that there was more, you know, much more that he had in mind, because even when he had eclipsed the mark, uh, he still had stuff that he wanted to finish with, and so the fact that he was uh, lucid enough to be able to, still have his faculties about him, because most people, just would be from sheer exhaustion, would want
Oh,
to give up.
yes, I know me. If I've been on for hours and I have to go back and look at some of the stuff I've said, I'm like, oh my lord.
Yeah,
Now, Mary Ramirez says, but in my opinion, he did it because he wanted his word to be heard. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to admit he didn't criticize either, or he didn't criticize all of them. He didn't go against parties, and that's true. I think he was very positive in what he said. I do think that.
yeah. I mean, I didn't hear all 25 hours, but I would tend to agree as well.
Well, now, an Angry Otter says, I was on a conference call with Hillary and Bill Clinton when Hillary ran against Barack Obama and learned a lot about the inner workings. Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that
Oh,
goes on
yeah.
behind scene. I mean, do you
I'm sure it's not pretty.
yeah. Well, Cups, do you remember where? Well, you weren't even around whenever me and your sister were born, but I was born in Washington, D.C. My sister was born in Washington, D.C. And our father worked at the Pentagon. He was
Hmm.
military.
Yep.
So he was there when Kennedy had gotten shot. They had the funeral in Washington. He was part of that, the whole bit. And some of the stories he could tell from back in that day, holy moly. So, and then, yeah, my mom would back that up as well, and, rubbing elbows with everybody in Washington and stuff. And it was definitely totally different show, I said, behind the scenes as to what you saw on camera and stuff. So,
Yeah.
does anyone have any? Because we've been on now just a couple minutes short of an hour. Cups has been really, really sick. I mean, really sick. Today was the first day in several weeks that I've even recognized his voice. So, but it was important to him to come on tonight. So
I
I
have an
promised to,
antivirus on my computer just to make sure nobody gets sick.
yeah. But I just wanted to make sure that I didn't keep him longer than that. I want him to be able to go and rest. Even I'm looking at his coloring. He is not somewhere where he's got sunshine right now, and he looks pretty burnt and is probably a fever. So, but if anybody has any last minute comments, We will have a show again either Wednesday or Thursday night. I don't know if Cups will join us or not, but if anybody has anything, just let me know. Please make sure, leave a comment if you will after the video and a thumbs up for Cups because I want him to come back. So I will share all of them with him. I told him that I would. And if you're not watching us live, if you will please do that so that I can literally, I'm going to send him snapshots of each one so I can fill up his text messages. He'll be turning his phone off and he'll be like, oh my gosh, Rebecca.
But
But yeah,
here,
I'm going to do
I
that.
think it's important for everyone as citizens to basically share with one another what what we're going through, because I think that this is difficult. These are difficult times. This is difficult stuff that we're all going through with this, and it's truly the uncertainty that scares the heck out of a lot of us, and just knowing that we all share a lot of the same fears and concerns, and we just would like for things to settle down, calm down, and be able to have things function the way they're supposed to, and you know I just I think stuff like this and other stuff that people are doing is helpful, because it takes it's a little uh release of some of the pressure that we're all feeling.
Exactly. To be able to meet in a group. And then that was my whole reason for doing the show to get people thinking and to share ideas and stuff and to be able to express themselves.
Hmm.
So, but I
Yep.
certainly hope that you will come back again, Cups. I've been kind to you and everyone else has. And we're going to close with Mr. Picky says, I firmly believe that they want a clear line of division between both parties. What you are doing here is great. We don't have to live by the same ideals to get along and prosper. Amen.
Yep.
We come across people every day in our lives that of all kinds of backgrounds and stuff that we have nothing in common with, but yet we coexist. So, but so stay tuned for, like I said, either Wednesday or Thursday night, and Cups, one way or another, I'm going to get you back on, dude.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you guys all so much, and I
Thanks.
hope that you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
and I hope you get better. Love
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.